I sat in my closet for 8 hours, a walk-in closet, with my gun in my hand, debating about whether to shoot myself or not.
Queen City News has been investigating the issue of mental health among officers from the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department for months. A group of retired officers shared their struggles with PTSD and a system that cuts off all medical and health benefits upon leaving the force.
And a lot of these officers are asking for help and showing warning signs and ask for help, and the department isn't doing anything for them. They might not be at the point where they need to medically retire, but saying, hey, who are you talking to? Not from only from CBD, from these other ages. Like, I need somebody that's going to understand, a psychologist or a counselor who could understand what I'm going through.
Yet CMPD's only professional help on site is gone. Shannon Finnis led the mental wellness and resiliency training program until it was shut down.
I hate to say it, but it's a box check. Mental health and wellness is a box check.
Finnis left right before CMPD's only staff psychologist, Dr. Nikki Vasilis, decided to call it quits as well. CMPD is still on the search for a behavioral health counselor and has now gone over a month without any mental health professionals on site.
Well, tonight's new exclusive report, Queen City News chief political correspondent Emma Withrow sat down with Dr. Nikki Vasilis, who may have left CMPD, but is still staying in the field of mental health counseling for officers.
A first responder's 8-hour shift is much different than what most experience in their average workday. They save a life one day and then watch a person lose their life the next. It's difficult for those who aren't in that line of work to comprehend, but not for Dr. Nikki Vasilis.
My father was a first responder, and he was also in the military, so I've got two of those kind of colliding. But my uncle was also a first responder.
Dr. Vasilis said arguments and hurt feelings could have been avoided if her family and father recognized his mental health struggles after being on the job for so many years.
I didn't recognize it then as a child. I just, experienced that as, well, this is our life, this is normal, right? But now being on the backside, seeing some of the things that could have been detrimental, not only to my father, and what ultimately was detrimental for my uncle.
Growing up around first responders, she witnessed what these men and women go through every day, which led her into her current career.
I trained specifically with working with the law enforcement, first responder, military communities, because I just wanted to learn more about why do we do the things we do, but specifically what sets these special, amazing people apart.
After meeting with officers at CMPD, Dr. Vasilis said she wanted to help them create a wellness program that they deserved. But after a few years, the wellness program was shut down. She recently decided to leave her post at CMPD and provide her services a little further south in York County.
So Dr. Nikki is my counselor. And at the conclusion of a counseling session, divine intervention occurred, and I kiddingly said, Dr. Nikki, how do I get Dr. Nikki? And that morphed into us hiring her.
That's York County Sheriff Kevin Tolson, though he wasn't always this open about seeking mental health counseling, and points out the stigma is still entrenched throughout the law enforcement community.
My career grew up in the era of, I call it the suck it up buttercup era. Hey Sarge, that baby death that I worked last week, I have a child the same age, and all I can see is that baby's face when I see my child. Man, we got a domestic, you got to go take that call. Get over it.
And Sheriff Tolson, like many, had this mentality for years.
Of our major officer-involved shooting in 2018, where we had 4 officers shot, 1 fatally, and I sucked it up, and I had to lead this agency, and I had to lead them through an incredibly difficult time. I preached counseling, but I preached it as a hypocrite, because eventually I saw I knew within myself, but I eventually brought it to the forefront that I needed counseling.
After that, he turned a page and hopes the rest of his officers do the same. Now Sheriff Tolson and Dr. Vasilis are focusing on destigmatizing mental health counseling for officers.
She has hit the ground running. We're working her to death already. We're looking for funding sources for an additional clinician. And look, if I have to hire 5, if I have to hire 10, whatever it is that I think that I need to do, God laid it upon my heart after 2018 that Kevin Tolson is going to be a sheriff that looks out for his people.
Even though Sheriff Tolson's no longer in the physical line of fire, he still represents those who are. And it can be a difficult task when things go awry.
Let me see your hands. Let me see your hands.
York County Sheriff's Department officers responded to a welfare check call in 2021. During an altercation with the man sitting in that truck, Trevor Mullenix, officers opened fire. A SLED investigation found evidence Mullenix pointed a shotgun at officers, which led them to shooting into his vehicle. Mullenix survived and is now suing the department for what happened.
I'm tired. Maybe you can tell, maybe you can't. I'm tired because police officers today are forced to take on so many roles that should not be the responsibility of law enforcement. And then we face criticism for how we handle these responsibilities that are forced upon us.
Sheriff Tolson stands by the officers involved in this incident and is dealing with the negative backlash on a day-to-day basis.
And emails and making phone calls, wishing cancer and death on law enforcement officers. I challenge you to focus your energy on making a positive impact in our society. Our county is experiencing a mental health crisis, and it should not fall to police officers to be the first line of response to those in mental distress.
Sheriff Tolson encouraged people to reach out to their lawmakers and tell them to find a better way to make mental health resources more readily available to the community.
Windows, but
he and Dr. Vasilis feel their new wellness program begins to answer the needs of officers, starting with the dedicated peer support groups.
Sometimes it's easier for you to hear something from somebody that looks and experiences the same thing that you do on a daily basis.
There's also an internal behavioral health team and therapy dog program.
I notice when I do work with officers, when they see me coming, sometimes it's like, oh no, I'm not going to talk to her. But if I'm coming with one of the dogs, works every time.
Innovative methods she hopes make a difference.
And at the end of the day, even if I never see the cultural shift, right, the bigger, larger shift that I hope and pray that we will, if we save one person's life, if we save one person's, family, relationships and things, that to me is worth it all.
Now, you heard Sheriff Tolson recommend reaching out to lawmakers to get something to change. Emma has done that as well after her previous reporting on benefits for retired officers. So far, no legislative action has taken place.